Hello, today I'm here with my friend Scott Smith, and I'm Gregory Hoag. We're going to be talking to you about different sacred geometry forms. One of the first things I want to share with you is how geometry in this third dimension is created. We start with a point, 2 points give us a line, 3 give us a plane, and when you add the fourth point, that's when you start to become three-dimensional. That's when you move into the geometry in this dimension. So what this creates is a tetrahedron. So the tetrahedron is the first form that's created. However, because it's bringing energy in from the higher dimensions, it's the very first form, it has a lot of energy, and it's a very ragged energy, so I'd never recommend building a tetrahedron and sleeping in it, living in it, just working with it by itself. But when you take a tetrahedron and you balance it with itself, what happens is a star tetrahedron. You see, we have one tetrahedron pointing up and one pointing down. And so this is the basic form that is created when you work with two tetrahedrons in a balanced form, the masculine pointing up, the feminine pointing down. So it's an integration of masculine and feminine, higher and lower, and it creates more harmony. So this is often known as the Merkabah, that is the very first light vehicle around the body. There are many more higher dimensional forms, but the first one is the Star Tetrahedron. And so we work with this as the beginning form, as something that's simple and can work with helping to integrate a human being with their subtle bodies, with their higher self. It's one of the first ones to really help you bring balance into your body.
Yes, it's also a form of as above, so below. It's the balance between the here on this plane,
right,
and beyond. And
so now what we've done with this form, I'm going to take you now into showing you an advancement, the 5D star tetrahedron. And you see what we've done is we've taken the beginning shape of the tetrahedron and we work with an extra triangle on the top, forming a six-pointed star, because something we didn't share with the star tetrahedron is that when you look at it from the right perspective, you get a six-pointed star, which is all about the heart chakra, the balance of the upper chakras with the lower, as Scott was saying, the higher dimensions, the lower dimensions. That's what the six-pointed star does. It brings harmony to a situation. And so what we've done in this particular form is the 5D star tet has an extra triangle on the top and one on the bottom. And what that does is it brings that balancing energy in, and because basically we have the form itself forming a six-pointed star, the triangle top and bottom forming six-pointed stars, so we have three. And when you have three six-pointed stars, what starts happening is you can advance into higher dimensional realms more easily. So consequently, this form is more adept at bringing you into relationship with your higher guidance, with angelic guidance, with working with higher dimensional energies for healing and health.
Yeah, very, very much so. To make sacred geometry work in this plane, it's best to have it rotating. And this particular shape, when it rotates, it generates a field of divine love, which is just so wonderful to work in. It's so pure, it's really, really great. So if you do get a form, make sure that you get a something to a motor of some sort, because you want it spinning so that you can work in that field. When you move one field through another field, that creates the flow of energy, just like any generator does.
And when you are working with spinning, there are two different directions. If you spin it looking from above, you always look from outside in when you determine the direction of the spin, versus from inside out. We reverse things as a human being. That's what we do with astrology. So in this case, when from above it's spinning clockwise, it's moving energy into this dimension from the higher dimensions and helping us move energy in that way. When you spin it counterclockwise from above, it's bringing energy up from the earth, and that has many positive benefits as well. But when you move that energy up from the earth into the higher dimensions, that's sometimes used for cleansing, for moving energy up out of the system, and clockwise is moving energy into the system.
And this is just classic working with energy, classic physics 101, right-hand rule. You have your hand going, your fingers pointing in the direction of the energy flow. From above, this would be counterclockwise. Your thumb points in the direction of where the energy is going. So when you go like this, the energy is going up. Right-hand rule, clockwise from above, the energy is coming down.
Absolutely.
Classic, every engineering student knows right-hand rule.
Because that's what happens with electricity and the way electrons start flowing in wires in the field that they generate, that we can measure as a magnetic field when energy flows. The next form that we want to share with you is a progression from the Star Tetrahedron. We're going to connect all the points, and what happens is when you connect the points, you get a cube, and when you connect the center points, you get an octahedron. Here we have the cube, which again on point gives us a hexagon, but all of the platonic solids fit into a hexagon, the six-sided form for balance and basically defining all space and time. Now, this is the octahedron, which is eight-sided, and we remember our friend the tetrahedron, where we had two of those to create the star tetrahedron. All of these first three geometries are created and are found in Metatron's cube. So this is combining the six-pointed star with the points that form the cube and the octahedron at the center. What this does is, in an environment, it helps with grounding. So it's wonderful to be held on point under your bed for relaxation, for grounding, for connection. I mean, this is a tool that really is about connection, and it connects all the way into the angelic and archangelic realms, because it's working with the very principles of creation in the physical dimension. So this specifically works with physical dimensional issues around manifestation, creation, grounding, working with this dimension in relationship to the higher dimensions, and especially even into the angelic realms.
Oh, very much so. My students will know this as the cube of space, where we put specific angelic beings around ourselves in this format, and using the center points of each side, and then in the very center is you and also the Archangel Christos. And we work with this very, very much. And having this spin is just very, very powerful for helping you to connect and to work with your higher consciousness, to work with your guidance systems. And I found that it's very, very helpful with focus, to help you focus on projects you're trying to do, you're trying to finalize things. It's not the inspiration to get the project started. This is the focus to get it completed, the manifestation phase.
And when you spin it, it's important to spin it on point, because then each face, edge, the point, all have different energetic flows. They have different portals that they access. So when you are on point, what happens is you can see the double six-pointed star. Many people have seen this two-dimensional projection as the form that they refer to as Metatron's cube. Metatron's cube is a three-dimensional form, and this is only one perspective. If you look at the face, you have another perspective, and if you look at the edge, you have still another perspective. And all three of those perspectives need to be there, all three shadows of the three-dimensional form, to get the benefits of the energy from a full three-dimensional Metatron's cube. In 2D, basically the truth about 2D is it's an illusion. It doesn't exist. Here's a picture of Metatron's cube, and so in 2 dimensions, the length and the width, you can see it when you're face on, but if you turn it sideways, it doesn't exist. And so to work with a 2-dimensional form for energy, it really is working more with you than anything else. It's what you are bringing to the table. It's what you are focusing on. If you're shown a picture of a loved one, it can evoke a lot of love and emotion in you. And that has a positive effect as it goes out, because we're very powerful beings. But in reality, 2-dimensional forms on their own, without a human being bringing something to it, to the table, with their interpretation, it's an illusion that doesn't exist. 2D doesn't exist in the 3-dimensional world, and thus it doesn't have the power to move us into the higher dimensions the way our 3-dimensional forms do. Another one of the Platonic solids is the dodecahedron. It was revered by the ancients as being the form that really dealt with the cosmos, the higher dimensional realms. They talked about each of the other Platonic solids dealing with fire, air, earth, and water. This form dealt with ether. And so when we put points on this form, that is stellated in a way that works with something called the Phi Ratio, which is the way the body's created. Everything in creation that is organic, and even some inorganic substances, follow Phi Ratio relationships. And so the star dodecahedron, when we put those points on it, this is a form that starts working with really an advanced Merkabah, a Merkabah that allows us to move into a realm that starts to resonate with the same energies as the Christ and the Christ level of consciousness. So what we're talking about there is when Jesus walked the earth, he brought down into this dimension a level of consciousness called the Christ level of consciousness that allowed for more love and compassion to be imbued into this dimension. So the star dodecahedron helps us open our heart space, start to work with more love, more consciousness in, that realm of understanding.
Let me start with the other one first.
The dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron. Each one of our bodies in the body system, speaking from a spiritual sense, is also based in sacred geometry. The triangle is like the water molecule in the physical body, for instance. But we have all this geometry making us up. When we go out to the level of the Christ body, this is the shape. The Christ body, or Buddhic body, exists in 12 dimensions. And this is that shape of our crystalline structure at that level. When we stellate it, this is inside each one of us. It's inside this. right? And this spins on 3 different axes at 3 different rates of speed. And this is the Merkabah we work with, and we've worked with in other talks and in other classes and things like this. This is the Merkabah that when you get this moving inside of you, we can imbue it, we can put various concepts on it, like divine peace or divine love or whatever you would like. And this becomes like a gyroscope to help keep you on course because it's continually spinning inside, just like a gyroscope that we have in physical reality. And it's just an amazing shape. It's a really wonderful shape to work with. When we take that dodecahedron that we talked about, that 12-sided figure, that Christ body, the Buddha body, and we combine it with the sacred geometry of the next body out, the light body, which is in 20 dimensions, it's the icosahedron, we get this. And this is the stellated earth grid. It's just so powerful. In the center of the core of being is our node, and it's our node on the grid of the earth. With a tool like this, all of these shapes are tools. With a tool like this, it helps us tap into the earth grid and really project energies as an energy worker, light worker, whatever you choose, and get things accomplished. It's an amazing tool. When this thing spins, it helps not only in a major way resonate divine love, but also the Christ consciousness energies. And it helps bring you along. You'll have much deeper meditations. And it's a truly very powerful piece. I've been using one of these for many years.
You see, hold on to that.
Okay.
So I can show you, when we go back to looking at the dodecahedron with its 12 sides, and the icosahedron, which the ancients worked with in terms of flow, water, but it really starts resonating with soul. And when you combine these 2 elements, what happens is you get a form that is spherical like this, so that you see here we have the triangles of the icosahedron, the 5-sided faces of the dodecahedron, and so what we stellate is the dodecahedron in this piece, because we want to reinforce that energy flow going into the dodecahedron, which relates more strongly to the physical body. And so this is allowing you to go very, very far out into the universe and yet maintain your connection to Earth, connection to this body. No matter how much energy you start interacting with, if you aren't able to ground that energy into your physical body and be able to share it and share that love with others, you're not going to be able to be of much use. And so use to the evolution of yourself or the planet or others. And so that's what I mean by grounding. It's sharing, it's interacting, it's creating in this dimension and using these as tools, as we've spoken about. A tool is like a hammer that would help you build a house, but when you're done, you're the one that built the house, not the hammer, and it would be very difficult to do without the hammer. And so it is, it's very difficult to reach and maintain many of these higher dimensional energies without being able to ground them with a tool that can resonate with that energy. Earlier, when we talked about a star tetrahedron, we've done something else with the star tetrahedron, and that is we have changed the dimensions of the sides to work with something called the Phi Ratio. So what the Phi Ratio is, this caliber measures that the first digit of my middle finger is in a relationship to itself in the Phi Ratio. When you work with your finger to your hand to your elbow, so it is throughout the human body, insects, plants, animals work with this relationship. And so what we've done is create a star tetrahedron in that same relationship. And this is a relationship that in large forms that we have on our land, up to 15, 20 feet high, we found that we can start to interact with all of the sacred geometric sites on the planet. I say geometric, the nodes of the planet itself, the energy nodes, are brought into relationship through this form. And so I think we're going to be doing more with this in the future in showing how it can help human beings relate to the planet, relate to all the sacred points on the planet, and bring the best of what's going on at Angkor Wat, what's going on in places in the Great Pyramids at Giza and so forth, Uluru in Australia. We start creating relationship with the planet through all its sacred sites, working with this form.
Very, very much so.
Now, earlier when I was talking about the Earth grid, that is, the grid that used to be around the planet, I'm saying it's shifting the energy nodes of the planet. And this is a form that's created with the icosahedron and the dodecahedron interpenetrating each other. And we'll find they always interpenetrate in a, would you hold that for me, please?
Sure.
They always interpenetrate in a Phi ratio relationship. So that means if you take this distance here, it's going to be in a Phi ratio relationship to this distance in the length. So the length and the width are in a Phi ratio relationship. What we've done with this next form is we've taken all the points off of here, and it gives us something we call the sphere of health 2, because it's working with the 20 triangles of the icosahedron and the 12 faces of the dodecahedron you can still see in there. But in this form, when it's perfectly spherical, and especially when it's spinning and moving, you start working with something that really helps with the health of the body, working with the emotions, which are a big component of our health. If you're able to balance the emotions, get them to drain out of your body, ground into the earth, and allow higher frequencies to come in to replace those negative emotions, you can start to experience a much better situation in terms of health and well-being. And also reducing the stress that goes on mentally. That's another element that makes a tremendous difference. And science is finally beginning to acknowledge that people that are working under a lot of stress, people that are working with a lot of anger or a lot of fear or a lot of sadness will develop difficulties in their body, diseases. And so a tool like this helps to create a flow of balanced energy that creates relationship between our physical, emotional, and mental bodies and the higher dimensional realms where frequencies are at a much higher level and thus are vibrating at a level closer to love and true higher consciousness.
Very, very much so. Again, if you get this shape and you have it, it's very, very good to have it oriented in a way so that you have this horizontal band while it's spinning. And just have it spin. I have a sphere of health above my bed at home to help me with my physical issues and helping just to keep things balanced and healthy. Thanks.
This is the newest version I say that I've had a number of different aquarium pyramids. This is Aquarium Pyramid 2012, which was designed for the shifting of the ages. And as far as pyramids go, this works with energy in quite a different way than the square-based pyramids we found at Egypt. And so if we look at the base, you can see there are 3 6-pointed stars. Again, 3 is a very magic number for allowing us to attain access to the higher dimensions and work with energies in a way that is bringing it down from extremely high levels of creation, from actually soul level. And so in this form, which is made up of a couple of tetrahedrons that intertwine each other, and that's our canyon wren. And so working with this form, what we find is that we can bring higher dimensional energies into an environment, purify them, and then move them out again. So we're constantly refreshing the environment, constantly putting energy out that is being made more coherent, more in alignment with the higher dimensional realms. And so coherence makes a tremendous difference in our physical bodies, because there are so many things that are scattering our energies. And this is a tool that helps with focus, helps with grounding, it helps with bringing in coherence, and especially the higher dimensional vibrational realms.
Very much so. And this symbol here, the 6-pointed star, some people call it a Jewish star. It's more like the seal of Solomon. As it is said, let it be written. As it's written, let it be done. The triangle, it seals things. It's a way of making your intent stronger and making it pop, so to speak. This particular shape is amazing. Again, rotating. You can put various vials and stones inside and have them purified in a very special way. The energy that they resonate when you take them out is just wonderful. I've used this shape many times over the years since 2012, and they're just truly good purification tools.
Again, some of the tools that we're working with, the Eye Connect, the Heart Companion, can be put into the center, and that causes the energy to radiate out. When this is on a turntable and it's slowly spinning and you have an Eye Connect or a crystal in the center, it magnifies the energy and sends it out through the room, and what you're getting is that higher dimensional frequency, creating coherence in your environment.
I'd like to talk about another form that I really recommend to all of my students, and you came up with it a number of years ago, and you can talk to that later, but it's the Emf Solution. And what that does, we were just talking about coherence, and the thing about EMF is nothing blocks it. If somebody says they have a tool that blocks EMF, put it up against your cell phone, and if your cell phone works, that tool doesn't, because cell phones work on EMF. So there's no real way that I've ever known to block it. I don't know why you would want to. The problem is not the EMF. The problem is the chaotic nature of what we've done with EMF. And all the radio stations and TV stations, the children getting cancer who are living next to those high voltage lines, things like that. So this EMF solution, it takes the chaotic nature of what we as humans have done with EMF and puts it into a coherent waveform with a tremendous radius of effect. So if you're in a large city with girders and beams in a lot of the buildings and stuff, it'll go out farther than a lot of forms, but it won't have the same effect as if you're in an area where the energy can just flow outwards without being redirected by various structures. And we found the radius effect to be about 25 miles with this form. It's just an amazing form. And what it'll do is, I have one in my office. People have seen it on my YouTube films. it's sitting there with all that electronic equipment, keeping everything in coherence, and it helps maintain the sacred space created by, created by asking for it, created by going inside and using some of those techniques that I teach so much, that I use myself. And it's the effect of the form creates peace in the neighborhood, unbelievably so. And I can't recommend it enough. It's usually the first form I have a student buy.
So I know I love the EMF Soul Solution, and it does create a flow of energy from very, very high realms, and again creates coherence in the environment and coherence in your body. And what coherence really means is that everything is working together. Everything is in resonance with everything else. And so coherent fields are fields that when we enter them, we are able to think more clearly. We're able to focus. We're able to manifest. We're able to be at our optimum health-wise because everything is working. That's the nature of coherence. Incoherence is what's going on in this world with all the different toxins, all the different frequencies that are going on with EMFs, the wiring in the walls, all the different emotions that people are expressing, all the things going on with the news media creates a dissonance. And that's the opposite of coherence.
Yes.
This is a form called the woven spiral star. And the way it's used is you move it in circles, clockwise or counterclockwise. If you're going clockwise over someone's body, you're finding that you're moving energy in. When you go counterclockwise, you're pulling energy out. You can use points to draw along the body and to literally create flows of energy. What we've got here is a six-pointed star that's actually woven. So the sides weave in and out of each other. That weaving causes an energy spin that creates more of a vortex. When you have the ring on the surface, this is a ring that is in a very particular length that is working with a sacred cubit. So working with that wavelength of light, that's what the different lengths give us, is a relationship, a resonance with light frequencies. So by putting this in a certain dimension, and then we have 3 wires that are twisted. Again, the importance of 3. There was a gentleman, Slim Sperling, who worked with 2 wires, and the 2 wires work more with 4th dimensional energies, physical shifting on the physical dimension. But when you're working with 3 wires, you're able, or 3 rods, you're able to bring in the higher dimensions and move it into the physical and create more change on an emotional, mental, and spiritual level, as well as working with the physical. In the center, we have a 6-pointed star woven out of sterling silver. Silver is a very important metal for working with the feminine aspect of receptivity and shift. And then, of course, the outside is gold-plated. So you're working with the masculine energy of the gold, which is more aggressive, the feminine energy of the silver. And then we have small natural magnets made from hematite that are, again, 6-sided pyramids that are back to back. That's the shape of the magnet. So the magnet shape is important, the wire strung through them, the ring itself located over the center, and then this 6-pointed star. So this is a phenomenal form for moving over someone's body. I'll often go over their back and kind of fluff it up, and they feel the energy moving out of their aura that's negative, and then you can go over the crown, bring energy down, but to move energy out, bring it in, and to spin it. This is a wonderful tool for helping to balance all the chakras, tool for opening up and clearing the energy stuck in different chakras, in different nadi points. The nadis are like the fine expressions of the chakras, because you have the basic 7, and then you have it going out and breaking down into more and more, hundreds of points on the body. And these are what are often referred to as the acupuncture points, where you can stick in a needle and work with the energy flow that's coming in. And with this tool, it's a lot like an acupuncturist needle, but it's working with higher dimensional energies in the process, moving those energies into the points of your body where you need that, pulling energy out. You can change the direction. There is the ring on top, and so when you work with it like this, you have one effect. When you flip it over, you can have a more aggressive pulling out effect, and this is moving the energy in more. Again, I mentioned the points. There are magnets also, really samarium cobalt, which is a very important resonance for the physical energetic body. Samarium is a rare earth element that works with interphasing with the higher dimensions again. Many of the things we use in our modern technology, we don't realize that we are interphasing interdimensionally with 4th, 5th dimensional realms. Something like this, we're actually able to go into 6th, 7th dimensional realms, into the realm of soul, into the realm of connection with spirit. If you saw some of the other explanations for other forms, you know that this was once referred to as the Earth grid that went around the planet, around the human being, the grid that is found around all planets, and it was called the Christ consciousness grid. And now we've seen this evolve into something even more powerful. And what I mean to show you this for is to show you how the next form was created. If you take the points of the icosahedron and the dodecahedron and you connect them so that you have diamond shapes in between these points. And again, remember I showed you that this relationship to the long relationship is in the Phi Ratio Relationship. So the Phi ratio is what relates to the physical body and the physical bodies of plants, animals, human beings, everything organic and growing on the planet. The DNA structure itself is based on Phi ratio relationships in the way the two, that you have the double twist there and the double helix. So when you connect these points, what you get is a form that we call the unity grid. So you can see these little diamond shapes from connecting the points of the Earth grid. The line going across the middle is the dodecahedron that was in the original form. I left the dodecahedron in this form. And the reason is, again, the dodecahedron is the element that interfaces to the physical. It's what allows the physical to be brought online and to be worked with the etheric dimensions, with the subtle dimension that is just beyond the physical. That's the etheric. And so that's 4th dimensional interfacing with 4th dimensional energy between 4th and 3rd. So by working with this form, what you have are the 30 diamond shapes that are cut in half. So these diamonds are in a Phi ratio relationship. The width to the height is in that Phi ratio, which we showed with this particular form, which can demonstrate something like the hand to the elbow, the wrist to the middle finger. There are many Phi ratio relationships in the physical body, and that's what this relationship is showing. So what happens is, again, this starts relating to the physical dimension and to all life and all health. And so this is a phenomenal tool. It works with all the different emotional, mental, and physical bodies, bringing them into relationship with the higher realms, so there is a stronger sense of unity, a stronger sense of connection. This starts creating relationship between you and other human beings, you and the earth, you and all plant life. It is very effective in not only downloading information and energy to you, but projecting information and energy into the planetary grid itself, into the health and well-being of all those in its vicinity, which is a very large radius, especially when it's spinning and turning on its axis in a clockwise way, bringing energy into the environment, and counterclockwise when you want to draw energy up from the earth and project it out into the larger relationship with the earth grid. In the process, it's bringing everything into a level of sacred space through gratitude, through that higher knowing, through that higher connection. This is a tool that helps dispel the illusion of what's going on in this reality, bringing through higher levels of love, compassion, and well-being for all.